There's so much news we need to talk about with Israel and Palestine, and I know this is going to come as a shock to you, but none of it is good. For one, we learned that Israeli forces killed 7 humanitarian aid workers in Gaza last night, with those workers being part of a group called World Central Kitchen, or WCK, which is a US-based nonprofit that's also become a key player in the delivery of humanitarian aid to the region. While this is still a developing story, we have details starting to emerge. Like, first up, those killed include 3 British nationals, an Australian, a Polish national, an American-Canadian dual citizen, and a Palestinian. With all those governments condemning the attack, and U.S. Secretary of State Blinken calling the workers who were killed heroes and saying, we shouldn't have a situation where the people trying to help their fellow human beings are themselves at great risk. And as far as exactly how this went down, you had WCK saying that its convoy was hit after unloading more than 100 tons of humanitarian food aid at a warehouse in central Gaza. And very notably here, the group said that its convoy had coordinated its movements with the Israeli military, saying that they were traveling in clearly marked vehicles. And actually with that, you have people pointing to footage shared by Reuters that seems to show that a hole was torn through the WCK logo on the roof of one of the cars. And this actually has Aaron Gore, the group CEO, claiming that its employees were specifically targeted by Israel. Now, to be clear here, this is still developing. We do not currently have any evidence at this time that this was intentional. Though you had Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu acknowledging that Israeli forces were responsible, saying, unfortunately, in the last day, there was a tragic case of our forces unintentionally hitting innocent people in the Gaza Strip. This happens in wartime. We are thoroughly looking into it, are in contact with the governments, and we will do everything to ensure that it does not happen again. And whether or not the allegations that this was a targeted attack have any merit, Netanyahu's words here just sort of ring hollow for a lot of people. And that's because, as we know, innocent people dying in this war is not new, right? Most recently, we have these 7 new deaths, but I mean, we have over 200 humanitarian aid workers that have been killed in Gaza during the war. And that's in addition to at least 95 journalists and media workers, and of course, that's on top of as many as 32,000 Palestinians who have been killed, according to Gaza's health ministry, with that number including more than 13,000 children. And many saying that these death tolls have a lot to do with how Netanyahu has chosen to wage this war, with human rights groups warning that Israel is not complying with the ICJ's order in the genocide case against the country, and also arguing along with UN and EU officials that Israel's blocking of humanitarian aid indicates it's using starvation as a weapon of war. And I mean, to that point, it's notable that this attack on WCK has led them to suspend their operations in Gaza. The celebrity chef Jose Andres, the founder of WCK, saying on X, the Israeli government needs to stop this indiscriminate killing. It needs to stop restricting humanitarian aid, stop killing civilians and aid workers, and stop using food as a weapon. And then in addition to that news, we're also seeing Israel coming under fire this week for a new law that had passed to temporarily shut down the Qatari-funded news outlet Al Jazeera. And so to be specific, the law allows for the temporary ban of foreign news networks that the government deems a threat to national security. But Netanyahu said that he would act immediately to implement the law against Al Jazeera, accusing the outlet of supporting Hamas's October 7th attack and serving as a mouthpiece for the group. And with that, while you do have people who are critical of Al Jazeera's coverage, and that includes the US government, with this, we've seen the Biden administration say this may be a step too far. The White House press secretary saying, we believe in the freedom of the press, and adding that the United States supports the critically important work journalists around the world do, and that includes those who are reporting on the conflict in Gaza. And this is the CEO for the Committee to Protect Journalists said that this is part of a pattern of Israel attacking journalists.
We've seen this kind of language before from Netanyahu and Israeli officials in which they try to paint journalists as terrorists, as criminals. This is nothing new.
But that is where we're going to leave it today. And of course, with this, I'd love to know your thoughts on either of these situations.